dad, Ken Sumner, I just want to say a big thank you to a few key people. Right at the top of that list, at the very top, my sister, Jackie Sumner. Amazing work looking after my mum and dad. Right next to her at the top, my brother-in-law, Phil Evans. Right at the bottom, at the bottom, holding the very thing up on canvas, my brother, Ken Sumner. Phil Sumner, by the way, not just the world's greatest son-in-law. Phil Sumner! Yeah, Phil Sumner's here! Yeah, there he is! Yeah! Phil Evans is not just the world's greatest son-in-law, he is the world's greatest brother-in-law. I think he's one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. He's unbelievable. But also, thanks to Steph for doing all of the plans and whatnot, and the printouts that you see on the tables. Thank you, mate. And if you were impressed by the sports theme of the naming of these tables, well, clearly, I just applied my years of cricketing prowess to naming those tables. That's not true. I know nothing at all about cricket. But I know a man who does, Andy Webster, who did it all. Yes! Yes! Thank you very much. My dad, Ken Sumner, was born 90 years ago and a little bit on Tuesday, the 12th of July, 1932. And he was born at the Liverpool infirmary. And he spent the first couple of years of his life shuttling back and forth between Seaforth and Bootle. Sumner's going back for decades, for millennia, who knows, are a docking family. And my granddad Herman and my great-granddad Ted, aka Golly, for reasons that we can get into. It's a long but beautiful story. Nothing to do with deep sound. That'll be Ted Sumner on the line.
Hey, John, you're done. Must be for you.
And he spent that time shuttling back and forth between Seaforth and Bootle. But when he was still a young boy, he moved with the family to Town Green, and I guess that's still Town Green Allscope is where you claim as your home like that. Yes, that sage nod is a yes. And he grew up there, and he was pretty much the first person named Sumner to ever work in an office. And in the course of working in an office, he built the life that he came to have, where essentially, if I was to identify anything about Ken Sumner's life, his life has been about helping people. And there are a lot of people in this room that I know that he has made a material difference to during the course of their lives. Not just mine, not just my brother and sisters, not just my grandkids, but lots of his other relatives. You, John, you, Frida, I know, I absolutely know, all down to Ken Sumner. And if I could tell you anything about my dad, he is the most selfless person I've ever met.
Woo!
Yeah. He's the most selfless person I've ever met. And he's always putting other people first. And of course, he has some extreme passions. He loves movies. He loves music, particularly if it doesn't have any guitars in it. But above all, more than anything else, that he's dedicated his life to, what he truly loves, is checking the sports results out. Without fail, wherever he is.
Spot the ball's finished, you know.
Right. Not in Dad's head, though. Actually, that's not the thing he loves the most. The thing he loves, although he does love it a lot, he loves it a lot. He loves checking the sports results. It's my mum, Dorian Sumner. The love of my dad's life. Married for all this immense time that they've been married for. And I've not seen anybody dedicate themselves to their partner the way my dad has dedicated his life to my mum. And it's truly beautiful to be privy to and to watch. I've never seen anything like it. And I've seen a lot of things. Some things you would never want to see with the naked eye, but it's unbelievable. And the thing about my dad is he's really has genuinely helped people. He really does genuinely put other people first. And he really does love my mum, and he really does love his children. And he really does love his grandchildren, Goldie and Cece. I was going to name everybody actually. I was just as a pause for dramatic effect. Courtney and Jacob, Lucifer and Joe. He loves his family, he loves his grandchildren. But the reality is that he's not without his idiosyncrasies. Right? And the thing about Ken Sumner is he's obsessed with weight. Not his own weight, my weight, and Jackie's weight, and Neil's weight. And a typical conversation with my dad would be, back from college some years ago, bing bong, hey, Dad, I'm home. You have put on weight. A term later, after doing nothing but hit the gym all the time, bing bong, hey, Dad, I'm back. You have lost weight. But what have you done to your hair? Because that's the other thing Dad is obsessed with, is her hairstyles, haircuts. Now, not just my haircut, or Neil's haircut, or Jackie's haircut, but all of your haircuts. You don't know that, I do. And the thing about Dad is, he's got a few idiosyncrasies in addition to those. I would say the two key ones are that mainly he gets from the legendary figure that is my grandmother, my late grandmother, May Sumner, well known to all of my cousins right here, legendary figure in Lancashire, and a woman not shy of expressing a few opinions every now and then. Yeah, I lived with Grandma when I was at college at Edgehill, and a regular grandma trope would be you'd be walking around the supermarket with her. And she'd go to, look at that terrible man over there, the slovenly way he's dressed. Have you seen the state of him? She'd be pointing at him. So she could except the guy would be here, weren't he? It's like, inch away. She'd be nodding him. He looks so scruffy, doesn't he? So Dad has picked up this habit from Grandma of marking people's cards. That's a very funny phrase to myself and Jack and Neil. Well, I marked his card. And what that means is he'll find something about you about which he disapproves. And he'll come up and tell you what that thing is. You haven't asked him to tell you that, but he's going to mark your card and tell you nonetheless. Right? So Dad is the ultimate card marker, and that's a big thing to him. But having said that, to roll back to the things that Dad is truly special and well known for. Oh no, I'll give you one other thing. he does, which is the Ken Sumner stage whisper. Now we, my siblings and my kids, have grown up with this being a staple of our lives. And that's when my dad has a social observation about somebody in real time that is not particularly flattering. But rather than go up and express it to them face to face, he goes up and expresses it to them as a stage whisper. Have you seen the state of this guy right here? Except the whisper is as loud as a normal person. Years ago, I used to write about films for a living. And when you write about films for a living, what you do is you get taken to posh private cinemas, and you get fed, and you get watered, and you get to sit in an armchair, and you get to watch a film, then you get to get paid about writing about it. Get paid for writing about it. Now that doesn't sound like real work, and believe me, it isn't real work. It isn't even close to being real work. But what you can do when you can go to these screenings is you can take your dad with you. So I took my dad to one of these screenings. And it was to see a film that I thought he'd be interested in. It was called Photographing Ferries. And I thought, great, he comes from a docking family. It'll be interesting to see how they can make a film about that. Except we got there, And I got it wrong. It wasn't called Photographing Ferries. It was called Photographing Furries. So it was somewhat different in tone. So we get there, and we're in the queue for the drinks and sandwiches. And in front of us are the way it works with film critics is the people who work for television and work for the film magazines, they tend to be working class guys, men, women, who were educated and pull themselves up and they write about films. Then you have the people who write for the luxury newspapers, yeah, and they tend to be college dropouts who went through an Eton career, and they weren't smart enough to be the theatre critic, so they made them the film critic, right? And they incredibly, for want of a better description, up themselves. And there's the film critic in front of us, the film critic for the Sunday Times, the film critic for the Daily Telegraph, Dad's paper, and the film critic for the Guardian. And they're standing in front of us, and we're standing right behind them. And they're talking to each other. They're saying incredibly highfalutin things like, well, obviously, I went to see it, and he thought he was Martin Scorsese, but no. In fact, he was more like somebody more together, much more retro, much more loose. And Dad is like, oh, oh. And they stop for a second, and they look at that, and then they carry on talking. He used the 35-metre Ariflex lens when he should really have used the 20-metre Albutorum. Dad's like, oh God, oh God. And they stop again and they look at him. And then he goes to me, and I'm sorry, but this is the one piece of this remembrance that will have a swear with it. And it's only because he really said that.
You wanted the quote around the...
What's that? Yeah, okay, thank you very much. So Dad goes, have you listened to the state of these three? And they just stop and look around. They all know me, I've known them for years, I don't like them, but I've looked at them. So they're looking at me, and I tried to start it, and I go, why Dad? Whoever do you mean? Dad, these fucking three pricks right there. Photographing furries. Except, he didn't say the word pricks, it began with a C. There you go, sis. An interesting thing about Dad is his modesty. Very, very modest person. For all that he's achieved in life, the funny thing about Dad is, some of the most interesting things he's done, he never tells anybody. I was telling some of my old school friends right here a while ago about how Dad's worked with the Beatles. He worked with NEMS, the Beatles organisation. He was personal friends with Jim McCartney, Paul McCartney's dad. He was good friends with Jerry Marsden. He was his bank manager for years. I was mentioning this, we never knew any of that about your dad. I said, yeah, the thing about Dad is he's not really interested in pop music, so he just never thinks to mention it to people. In fact, unbelievable things he's done with those people, but he never talks about it. The interesting thing I mentioned about guitar music, the interesting thing about Dad and music is he's the only person I know who he doesn't like guitar music. Therefore, he doesn't like contemporary rock and roll music. But to Dad's ear, whether it's Kanye West, or whether it's Elvis, or whether it's Simon and Garfunkel, it all sounds the same to him. It's all just rubbish. So it's like, what's this nonsense you're listening to? This is the greatest Beatles album ever. No, it's the White Album, Dad. Never heard of it. Yeah. So very interesting the way that Dad approaches music. But he's done all these immense things, and not really told anybody about it. And I guess my sort of closing words about Ken Sumner would be that I never had any heroes. Yeah, Captain James T. Kirkby's not real. Bugs Bunny, a cartoon, not real. Orson Welles been dead for 40 years. But sometimes, your dad gets to be a person of amazing principle who's positively benefited a lot of others. And then sometimes that person of principle gets to be your husband. He gets to be your old mate. He gets to be your old mate's dad. He gets to be your cousin. He gets to be your uncle. He gets to be your grandfather. He gets to be your mentor. And sometimes that person gets to be your hero. And that is a very special thing, I think. So Dad, I love you. We love you. You're my hero. You ought to know everybody I know. When you've been brought up by Ken Sumner, you're brought up in fear of what he calls the family performance. And the family performance is, Dad has always loved amateur performing. And myself and Jacka and Courtney lived in fear of those moments when Dad would make us perform for his and other people's benefit. Once we were on holiday in Anglesey, I really wanted him to take me to see the Battle of Britain. And he said, I'll take you to see the Battle of Britain, but you've got to sing this school hymn in front of everybody else at the hotel we're staying at. And I was like, what? But I really want to see the Battle of Britain. It's got Michael Caine in it. Yeah, but you're going to have to sing that song. Which I had to do. Similarly, there was a school performance you're at once, and the support act was playing Simon & Garfunkel tunes. By the way, actually the only guitar act Dad does like is Simon & Garfunkel. I made that bit up before. And what happens is, there's somebody playing Simon & Garfunkel tunes, and there's an audience of 200 people, including my dad and Jacka, my sister. So he makes Jacka sing along to all the Simon & Garfunkel tunes. And they are the only people in the audience who are singing along. And Courtney's grown up being pressed into service simply with various family performances. And Dad made it known to us that he'd quite like a family performance here at his 90th birthday. Of course, we flatly refused and laughed in his face. There's no way of doing that. But then I thought, given Dad's close connection with the Beatles, and given the fact that every Sumner in the world that I know is in this room, and every MacDonald in the world that I know is in this room, and every friend of Dad's that I know is in this room, what would a family performance look like with this family? And then I realised I know what it is. What we're all going to do, all of us, is sing the refrain from Hey Jude. Na 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 na. But instead of singing Hey Jude at the end, we're going to sing Hey Ken. So give that a go. See how it works. A family performance just for my dad, who I love. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Na 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 na. Tell you how much my dad appreciates it. I'm a mum. Thank you very much.